right, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 20 of the Table Talk podcast. Yes, we are already at number 20. We are officially live on Oz Media's 313's YouTube page. Today's episode, we are going to discuss the current Bosnia/Serbia conflict that is happening right now. We have two guests with us, and we are going to introduce those guests in a little bit. First of all, let's introduce the co-host of the show. We have Shema Ghalib in the building, and we have Big Sis Abir Thabit in the building. Our first guest is Dennis Ekic, and then our other guest is Ekrem Sarkic. For those of you that know Mr. Sarkic, do they say Sarkic or Sarkic?
Sarkic would be correct.
All right, Sarkic. All right, Mr. Sarkic, he is in the building. For those that know him or remember him as a teacher, he is here today. And like I said, we are here to talk about the Bosnia/Serbian conflict that is happening right now. We appreciate these people that are in the building today to talk about it, to educate people, by the way. To educate people. Little bro already said, shout out to the best Spanish teacher. Yusuf Thabit just said that right now, by the way.
Thank you.
I wanted to give you a shout out. But before we go into the conversation, we also want to give a shout out to our sponsors of the show. And first of all, we're going to start off with the Balkan House restaurant. Dennis Ekic, his auntie, is the owner of the restaurant, which is Juma Ekic. Location, great person. Location is 3028 Kniff Street, Hamtramck, Michigan. They also have a Ferndale location, which is 314 West 9 Mile Road, Ferndale, Michigan. They are a gold sponsor of our show, so they sponsor each and every one of our shows. They're famous for their doner kebab sandwich. They even serve breakfast. All of their food is halal. Service is A1. Always giving back to the community, like my sister just said. Shout out to Juma, shout out to Hassan, shout out to everybody over there at the Balkan House restaurant. We appreciate them and their constant support. And not only going from the Balkan House restaurant, we'll talk about BC Adhesives later on in the show. That is our second sponsor of today. With all that said, like I said, today is all about these guys telling us and educating us on what is going on right now in the country of Bosnia. So first and foremost, can you introduce yourself? I know I kind of formally introduced you, but maybe tell a little bit about yourself, your history, and, basically just introduce yourself, I guess. We can start with the introduction. Yeah, we can go from there.
Ekrem Sarkic. I teach Spanish and social studies, actually currently Spanish at Hamtramck High School. Immigrated to the United States from Bosnia in 1994. We came here as war refugees. And one of the reasons why we came to your show tonight, to educate people, trying to prevent that from happening again. There's stuff we can do before things get out of control. I have a degree in history, master's degree in education, and then some. Love United States, but I also love Bosnia.
And we appreciate you being here. Definitely appreciate that. Then Dennis.
Yeah, I'm Dennis Ekic. I'm a supply chain analyst at Chrysler right now. I'm also a refugee from Bosnia. I was actually born during the conflict, well, just before the conflict in 1990, and came here, also as a refugee after Germany. And just like Mr. Sarkic, I love America, but I also love Bosnia. So,
let me ask you this question: when did you come to America?
In '99.
99.
Yeah.
Was it 94? That was the time up until like 99 where like everybody was coming in waves from Bosnia?
94 was the time where majority of Bosnian refugees were allowed to come to the United States. Currently in the United States, you have about 250,000 Bosnians or Bosnian ancestry, people that derive origin from Bosnia. Living in the United States, we have a little under 10,000 Bosnians living in Michigan. Predominantly we live in Missouri, in St. Louis, New York area, some in LA area. That's where we primarily concentrated.
And I want to say this before we start the show, because I know we all wanted to mention something. So I am going to say this. So first of all, we're doing this, number one, to educate so that we can prevent something that happened in the 90s from happening again. But, for us, being who we are too, like we grew up in the city of Hamtramck, right? And we grew up with many different multicultural, backgrounds, religions, and stuff like that. And I just want to say, like, growing up with Bosnians, like, with everybody, but Bosnians included, we grew up like a family, 100%. We grew up close, we grew up with each other, went to school together, played sports together, and when you do all that, it's like you create a brotherhood, and
100%.
That's what happens. And so, hearing about this, I had to reach out to Juma. And thank God, I don't know, thank God your name came up as well. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy. I don't know why it did not cross my mind, but getting both of you guys here was very important because I wanted the story to be told the right way. And I know you're going to say something as well.
Yeah, like even though we're different, we still love our back home, you know? So the way that you feel about your country is the same way that we feel about our country. And if we can shed light on what's happening, why not, you know? So. And
what were you saying before the show, Shema? I know you mentioned something as well that you...
I think it's really, like, in a sense, because, I mean, I come from Dearborn, right? And people from my community, we have the plethora of multitudes of items, right? And I know every kind of Arab there is. But in retrospect, we really don't have that diversity where we meet people, or Muslims, Muslim countries in our area. We don't really have that. And so, like, for example, like, I just got equipped to the Bosnian Muslim community in my 20s. Like, that's the first time I was introduced. So, you know, hearing the stories, it just triggered like a Palestine kind of feeling for me. And for me, that just touched home. And I was just like, oh, whoa. And the fact that, you know, they're so close in the Hamtramck community and just like all around it, just it makes you sad. It makes you, and then I kind of felt guilty that I wasn't really aware of what was going on. And I was so grateful for today's episode because the same education that I'm gonna get is gonna be passed down to so many other people that are watching. So I think that's very, very important.
And we want to reiterate, like my sister also said, that them saying that they love Bosnia and us saying that we love Yemen does not mean we don't love America. Like, we love America. This is where we live, right? This is where
we got lucky.
Yeah, we got lucky to meet here and make it here, and so I just want to make sure that that's also known, that we gotta make sure that people understand that. But with that said, y'all ready to get this show started and show on the road? The basic question of what exactly is happening right now in the country of Bosnia. We can start off with you, Mr. Sarkic, and then we could then pass it on to you, you too, Dennis, as well. So what exactly is happening right now in the country of Bosnia?
To answer this question, you have to go a little bit into geopolitics and so-called proxy wars. And to bring that home to you, to Yemen, what's going on right now between Houthis and Sunni Muslims in Yemen is proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran.
Yeah.
Same thing is happening in Bosnia. So basically about 6-7 years ago, United States kind of pulled back. We had that America first mentality. Let's take care of our backyard before we can. So we kind of withdrew and created vacuums throughout the world. Well, who tried to fill those vacuums? Russia and China. In this case, connected to Bosnia, in that situation, Russia is one of the major players. Russia is the one pushing on and egging on Serbs to basically pick a fight in Bosnia. So we had a stable peace that was brokered by the United States in 1994, November of 21st. As a matter of fact, the peace accord is called Dayton Peace Accord because it was forged in a military base in Dayton, Ohio. So that ended the war, ended the fighting. Now, United States ended up bombing Serbia as well because of the situation they were conducting in Kosovo and doing the same similar type of atrocities and ethnic cleansing. And that also is connected to what's going on because it's not only Bosnia that is affected, because Russia is pushing on Serbs to reclaim these territories, to reclaim. There was a situation in Montenegro. Montenegro almost ended up in an armed conflict about 3 or 4 months ago. Then you had 6 months ago situation in Kosovo, and now there's a Bosnia is always a powder cake. To bring it to your viewers and your listeners, Bosnia is famous for what? World War I. That's where it started. The conflict started in the city of Sarajevo, a city where I was born. And it had something to do with the Serbian nationalism trying that mentality, 200-year-old plan to create a greater country. And how do you do that? Well, you expand at the territory or at the expense of your neighbors. So that's what they're trying to do. Similar situation is happening in Ukraine. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea. That's kind of what they're egging on Serbs to do right now, to annex that part of the Bosnia where they're majority. And the reason why they're majority is because they ethnically cleansed. They wiped out all of the Muslims from that region. There were some who are coming back to the area. But they're not welcome. It's almost like apartheid. They're getting pulled over for no reason. They're getting harassed by the police. Our mosques that were destroyed and later on rebuilt, they're hurling pig heads in the front yards of the mosques. They're doing
Intimidation and
graffitis.
all that.
They're singing nationalist musics that are offensive to us because they're celebrating war criminals and they're celebrating genocide.
So why do you think it's happening now, like more than?
Well, again, it's a chess piece or it's chess game between United States and Russia. Russia would like to reclaim its position in the world as a global power. They can't do that through their economy, so they are doing that through destabilizing the region and taking off focus of what they're trying to do in Ukraine and what they're trying to do in Syria and a couple of days ago in Kazakhstan.
Do you want to add on to that? And
I think he did a great job explaining kind of the background behind it. I personally think it goes back a lot further than that. The Serbs are, in my opinion, holding a grudge that's a lot older than just a couple hundred years. Because if you look at the speeches that Milosevic gave during the 90s, he started a famous speech off by saying, "From the battles of Kosovo," you know what I mean? So, reiterating that when the Ottoman Turks slaughtered the Serbian army on the fields of Kosovo and entered the Balkans, what we've known to be the Ottoman Empire, it seems like that grudge started at that point. And to this day, they're still holding that grudge. Now, Russia and other countries are definitely, picking the fight, but you also have to have people who are willing to fight. You know what I mean? And how do you do that? You kind of go back to the roots of where the problem started, according to them. And according to them, the problem started when the Muslim army slaughtered the Serbian army in the fields of Kosovo, right? So they're holding on to this, and they're not letting it go. So the leaders, they use this to exploit the people, and to constantly remind them that, hey, this is what happened. We can never let this go. We always have to push because they don't belong here. And it's it's not just control and power. Like Mr. Sarkic said, it's literally ethnic cleansing, literally wiping us off the face of that the planet, because not only did they murder thousands and thousands of people, they displaced hundreds of thousands of people, they burned over 900 mosques, murdered over 100 imams, right? And they literally burned our libraries, our records. So they were trying to wipe us out. And another thing I would like to say is just the conflict that happened in the 90s, that was not the first attempt at genocide. If you go back to World War II, World War I, you look at Focha, Sanjak, they murdered thousands, tens of thousands of Muslims just because they refused to denounce their religion, and they literally tried to bury their crimes just like they did now. If you look at some of the videos, they literally try to bury their crimes, dig holes, put people in them, and forget that they ever existed. So the root of the problem is very deep. It's not just, you got countries picking proxy wars. They are definitely doing that. But you also have to have people who are willing to murder and willing to do this. And how do you do that? Well, you go back to the roots of, according to them, where the problem started. That's how you entice the people to do it.
I have a question. So I know you mentioned the Dayton Peace Treaty. So what did that consist of, for the ones that don't know?
Wait, and then to top that all off, to answer that, because this could be answered with that, is this targeted towards Muslims?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. It's a complicated situation, right? Because the Croats, they also did it to the Croats, and the Croats did it to them, and the Croats also did it to us, right? So it's sort of both sides want to get rid of the Muslims, but they also kind of want to get rid of each other as well, as far as
So they could take over.
the Catholics and the
explanation,
Croats,
yeah.
because Croatia wants a greater Croatia. Serbia wants a greater Serbia. We just want to live in harmony with everybody.
And what she was saying about the Dayton establishment, was that to help the people?
That was an agreement that the United States brokered, and that agreement gave everybody something. Everybody got something. So Bosnians got their independence, they got national sovereignty. Serbs got 49% of the country.
Okay, Bosnia has the other name, Bosnia and...
Herzegovina, which is southern part of Bosnia.
And that's always been.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's always been
Bosnia,
together?
that's always been.
Okay. So the name Bosnia, it's already reiterating how
Yeah,
do I say
the other
name?
part, yeah,
Yeah,
Herzegovina,
Herzegovina,
yeah.
yeah.
Herzegovina.
Great
Okay.
question.
Yeah, that region is known as Herceg Bosna. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
it's always been known.
So basically, it's like saying Yemen and South Yemen in a sense.
That's correct.
Yes,
Got it.
right.
Okay. Got it.
Did you want to go back to answering the original question that she had?
Dayton Peace Accord basically brokered agreement between Serbs, Bosnian Muslims, and Croats. There was an agreement to cease the war, cease the hostilities. Croatia would help broker the peace, stop fighting, stop their side. Serbs would influence Bosnian Serbs who were doing the fighting, and then Bosnian Muslims wanted just stop to be the war to be over and all the atrocities and everything else to stop. So we were forced, literally, to agree to this. Actually, all three sides were forced. Like nobody went
Right,
into this
nobody wanted
marriage
this.
willingly,
Okay.
Yes.
because guess what? Nobody's happy.
So who was the one that was like the U.S.?
The Bosnian Serbs were the ones who were trying to,
To get
create
something
to
going.
get
Okay,
the
okay.
territory.
All right, got
Now,
it.
United States kind of took everybody's idea into consideration. What did you guys want? What do you guys think is important to you? And basically held a gun to your head and said, okay, you have to agree to this, because it literally kept them hostages over there for like 20 days, did not allow them to leave the military base, and just come up with all these different plans. And now you have a plan that was supposed to stop the hostilities, but it serves as a constitution, and it is so imperfect. Even United States realizes that it is imperfect, that allows Russia to kind of push us.
Okay, so
Different
correct me if
buttons.
I'm wrong. Okay, so Croatia is already a country of its own, and Serbia is already a country of its own, but they still both own a part of Bosnia.
Well, their people live, within, right? So Bosnia consists of about 50% of Bosniaks, which are mainly Muslim, right?
Okay.
About 30-some percent are Serbs, and then like 20-some percent, or 15%, I believe, are Croats, and they mainly live on the southern border in Bosnia and Herzegovina, mainly, right? They're scattered, but mainly they live there. So you have these three people who are, nobody's really the greatest majority, even though the Muslims are a majority, we are a majority by a very small amount.
Hold on. So okay. So the identification gets based off of your religion, is how you identify.
That's another.
That's a
very
So
interesting
like
thing.
Serbia, like Serbians, because they're Serbians because they're not Muslim.
Okay, so if I can touch on this. So
I'm sorry, I got
in the
so many.
1800s,
Sorry,
we were
bud.
all Bosnians,
Okay.
except some of them were Muslims, some of them were Catholic, and some of them were Christian Orthodox.
Wait, and this is in the country of Bosnia.
In the
Correct.
country of Bosnia.
So
Then the Serbia
Okay.
comes up with this magnificent plan in 1844 called Načrtanje that says, okay, we want to expand our territory, expand our importance and dominance. Now, how do we do that? Well, they're Christian Orthodox, we're Christian Orthodox, let's convert them into serfdom. So literally, they send an army of priests, army of educators saying, okay, they actually even paid them. There is a record of them saying, like, what religion you are, say Christian Orthodox. He gives them a gold coin that says, and Serbian. So in 20 years, all those Bosnian Christian Orthodox people were saying, we're no longer Bosnians, we're now Serbs. Because they wanted also to belong somewhere. They wanted some protection from something, because Bosnia is constantly going through these types of conflicts. And the Croats did the same thing. Through the Catholic Church, they literally created another ethnic identity. Between us, you would not be able to see the difference.
So is the language still the same?
Language
Language
is still
same, culture is pretty much the same.
Wow.
You have, they do certain things that help them
Wow.
identify as Serbs right now. But again, going back to what he was saying, that's exactly, they launch campaigns to divide the people, right? I mean,
Wow.
divide and conquer, that's how you do it.
So I read a little bit about it, but I don't know, I'm not sure. So there's 3 leaders now, right? And then they take, it's like a
Yeah, so
revolving chair.
let's go to that, I guess.
Okay.
So the political system, not only is it corrupt, it's very confusing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you essentially have 3 leaders who hold a presidency, and what they do is they rotate on who is the head of the presidency, right?
How
So you
long
have-
How long is the rotation?
every 6 months.
There you go, every 6 months, right?
You
I
can't
thought
even,
it was
a
4,
plan
he's
can't
right.
go through in 6 months.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. So, you have one leader who represents the Croats, one leader who represents the Muslims, which are called the Bosnian, and one leader who represents the Serb entities, right?
And nobody represents the country.
Exactly, but
That's
nobody
the problem.
represents the country, collectively, right? None of them have interests in the country
In
as a whole. They
building the
only have
country.
they only have political power interests, right?
To take over.
They're trying to stay in power, so they they utilize whatever their voters are going for. They utilize that to keep the power.
Okay.
So they rotate. So right now, actually, just going currently, what's happening is right now, the Serb leader is actually in charge. And what happened recently, from my understanding, is there was a law that was passed because, like Mr. Saric said, the Serbs, they sing national songs that are offensive to us. They glorify the genocide. They glorify those war criminals like Mladic. And I don't even want to mention their names, but they glorify these folks. And, Bosnia passed a law that forbids this from happening. And it's punishable by like 3 to 5 years in prison. I'm not really sure. This was just recently passed. Well, you can imagine this infuriated the Serb leaders, right?
Yeah.
And their supporters. So, now the threats always happen. Every time this, usually the Croat leader and the Muslim leader, they sort of, when they're when they take over.
They're fair.
Well, they're not fair. Just the talks of conflict is mellow, But when this guy comes in the power, who's currently in power, he utilizes this,
His voice to make sure that just start stuff. Basically.
Exactly. So, right now, he's always made threats, economical threats of referendum, whatever it is. But nobody really took him serious because it was far-fetched for him to be able to reach these things. Well, the difference right now is that he's threatening to pull out of key state institutions including the military.
And start his own?
Exactly.
Okay.
But legally he cannot start a military. He would have to start a militia, right? So to us, this is, creating anxiety and fear. Why? Because the militia that he wants to create is the same militia that murdered tens of thousands of people in the 90s, right? And committed genocide and are denying it, right? So our question is, well, why do you want this military? For what? You're not being threatened. There's no military actions against you. There's no military threat against you. The main reason for your military is so that you can separate yourself via armed conflict. That's why the tensions are high right now. And actually, this is, the previous threats are more like far-fetched. This one is more, plausible and more doable, even though it's unlikely because of the, political pressures and international pressures. It is still very doable, although risky for them, because they do have Russia backing them, perhaps even Serbia backing them, right? So, we know that this can escalate very quickly, because it is extremely doable, and they do have the people who are willing to do it, and, he's claiming, the current leader, that he can get the funding for this. So that's why it's creating anxiety among the people, because we all know what happened the last time this military existed.
And initially, we didn't take him seriously. He was threatening, he was bad-mouthing Bosnia, he was not doing the job of a country, basically saying that this is a union of two entities that should break apart, and the Serbian entity should join to Serbia. And the reason why he's doing that recently is he's utilizing this vacuum that the United States left when, you had America first. Another reason why he's doing this is because he is exceptionally corrupt. He is exceptionally, well, let me repeat that. He's so corrupt. He's probably one of the richest, from one of the poorest countries in Europe, he's one of the richest politicians in Europe. And recently he was caught using oxygen for welding for treating COVID patients. And as a nurse, that's no. You need a medicinal oxygen that is 100% pure. Well, the reason why he's doing that was literally because he was skimming off the top, killing his own people.
Yeah.
And why would he raise the temperature in the country? Because nobody's now talking about that, and how he's setting up these company deals. He's like getting kickbacks. His son has a company that gets all these contracts. So he has the properties in Bosnia. He has properties in Belgrade. He bought property in Moscow, Russia, where he's hopefully planning to escape if this whole deal doesn't go through, and needs to leave the country.
He definitely has a lot to gain, right? Personally, he has a lot to gain and a lot to lose if this falls through for him, because they are trying to hold him accountable to some extent for the corruption and all the stuff that he's been doing.
And that's what I saw. Trying to just brush up on what was going on. I saw that there was a court studying, and that he was getting charged with crazy counts of just manslaughter and this and he was just being like one of the worst leaders or military leaders in the world, like present day. So amongst the Serbians and the Croatians, will all parties then say that this guy is an unjust man? Is that something that all parties can equally say, or is there like people that are like?
Well, the reason why he's doing this is divide and conquer. Basically, given the fact that he's stealing so much money and he's like impoverishing his own people,
He needs to stay in power.
He needs to stay in power. One way of doing it is an already charged country. He needs to create that tension, so we're focusing on war, just like we're talking about war right now.
Right.
And so he can continue doing what he's been
What
doing.
he's doing, yeah.
How are leaders in position? Like, how do you become?
I know we're criticizing a Serbian leader, but believe me when I tell you, the Croatian leader, I mean, he diverted the river to go by his compound. I mean, you don't have, I mean, it looks like probably more extravagant than the White House.
What about the Bosnian?
And we are corrupt too. We
He's
have our
corrupt
own
too.
issue.
He's corrupt too.
So all leaders
Yes.
are just corrupt.
Yes, they're all
It's a corrupt mess.
And they're using this
Each-
cycle.
Yeah,
Got
They're
it.
they're
using-
just
Got
using
it,
different
got it.
tactics depending on what their voters want.
So like, I
So
don't
you
know
get
how-
voted in. That was my
Yes.
question.
Yeah,
You
so
get
you
voted
got
in.
say you got somebody like Bosnians, for instance, who want economic prosperity and they want the country to grow. So this guy will promise this. You got these guys who want to break off. So this guy will promise this. Then you got these guys. So they go after what their voters go for.
And the ones that are suffering are the people.
Exactly, like usual. It's in every
The ones that
political
are
system.
suffering are the people that are the innocent people, by the way, that are just trying to live their lives every day and have a family and typically live,
Yeah.
literally, from what I'm hearing. And first of all, that's a great way of breaking it down. I love what I heard so far and being able to learn what's kind of going on. You guys kind of set the basis of what's going on. So, I know y'all kind of touched on it. So how does this all? I mean, I know y'all mentioned it, but maybe y'all want to talk about a little bit more of how does it relate to the genocide of the '90s? I guess we could start off with you right now. Like, do you guys see? Like, I know you mentioned it, but do you really see it get into?
Yeah,
this point?
so I've been talking to some people back home, and and pretty much what was going on in the '90s with the national songs and the provocations, and it's happening. The same thing is happening now. You know what I mean? So, the fear is that this guy wants to create this military, like we said, the same military that committed genocide in the '90s. He's willing to bring this power back to life, and what's going to happen when this happens? Most likely, well, we're not. Hopefully, we won't let happen what happened in the '90s. But essentially, that'll be their same goal. So, that's kind of how that ties into that.
Yeah, and you were there. You came to America in '94. So basically,
How old
do
were
you?
you?
Yeah, I don't want to say your age. I'm trying to avoid it.
Thank you.
But
I was gonna say.
What a question.
I'm so curious. I'm like.
I was
tell me.
17 when I arrived in the
So,
United States.
okay.
Yes, so I
Being
was a
17
kid when I was 14 when the war started. Yeah.
So
Do
you were
you see
there throughout the
similarities?
I
whole.
saw it all.
I was there for the beginning part of the war. Then we were refugees all over the place. We escaped to my mom's family in Montenegro. Then we ended up in Macedonia for 3 months. Then we ended up in Sweden, getting deported from Sweden because they didn't want to take any more refugees. Ended up in Denmark, and about a year and 3 months after Denmark, we came to the United States.
So I was gonna say, do you see similarities? But before you answer that question, like being a refugee, it's so like to hear people talk about it is like, oh, he's a refugee, but like, how
What
is
was the
it to
process?
actually
Yeah.
like you went to like 4 different countries before you got to America? It sounds
Was there
like.
someone that
I
was in
don't-
Bosnia helping people, like say, hey, listen?
I don't wish being a refugee on your worst enemy.
Correct.
You don't want that. I forgot to bring a picture of me literally posing in front of the tent. That tent used to be my house for 4 months. So that picture actually sits in my office to remind me,
Just
of
got goosebumps.
atrocities that could, stuff that could happen to you.
Yeah.
So, as difficult situation is right now with the pandemic, there's always worse, believe me. And the war in the middle of the pandemic is absolute no-no because it will not bring anybody any good. And to answer your question, this is somewhat a continuation of the 90s. Yeah,
Right.
the war stopped But did it really? It
conflict
actually
didn't stop.
continued.
Yeah.
Conflict.
It just,
upon
it's like a
conflict.
cancer, right? You go into remission, right? But the cancer is still there. The disease is still there, right?
Absolutely.
So it's just a matter of time before it flares back up and it comes back to the surface. So the conflict never ended. It was never resolved. I like to take it back all the way to the time of the Ottoman. Mr. Sarkic likes to be more present, and that's fine. But this never ended. This is a continuous thing, and all these wars that have been going on, they've just been setting stages for other wars. Because it creates animosity. Because it's hard to forgive when your family's been murdered and slaughtered. For one side, and for the other side, it's hard for them to forget when they've been saying that, oh, we were embarrassed, we were taken, our country was taken from us. So both sides, one is willing to die for their existence, the other one is willing to kill for their existence.
Again, which that sounded just like Palestine, the situation in Palestine. So
Yeah.
that's what's killing me. It's like ultimately, people are just trying to be alive. It just goes back to human decency, basic human rights, and that's what people are fighting for. And that's what just like sitting here, it's like, thank God, alhamdulillah, that we're in a predicament where, we ourselves are not in that situation. But the minute you can take yourself out of your shoes and just reflect to the people that are in that situation, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to realize that they're literally just fighting for their basic human decency. And that's where I'm just like, okay, what do I need to do?
So what was your refugee process like?
Kind of like him, I also, first of all, my father was murdered in the war. He was one of the the victims, and same thing with 113 of my cousins. We had a whole village named after my last name, and they were all murdered in one day, and pretty much dumped in a hole and tried to bury them out of existence. So in the night, we left, I think 93, 92 was started, around 93 we left, went to Croatia, and then eventually Germany. And then, from Germany, we were refugees. We were also locked up in a hotel where we couldn't leave, and the military was guarding us because the Germans didn't let the refugees just walk around like they do here, So you were confined until you were screened, evaluated, and then, you were put in some camps,
And you were like what?
I was like maybe 5.
Oh my God! In the conflict.
I was 5 when this happened. Yeah, I was 5.
Do you remember it clearly, or just?
Oh, yeah, I remember the war. I remember a guy being shot in front of me, and actually the foam hitting my mouth when they shot him because he went back to grab a blanket for his daughter, and the Chetnik or the Serb militiaman was like, "Why'd you go back?" And he said, "I went to go grab the blanket for my daughter because they were pushing us into this cage like cattle, right? So they were trying to get the whole village, 10 or 12,000 people into this cage, and this gentleman went back to go grab a blanket for his daughter, and they questioned him about it. He had a small daughter, and they shot him right there in front of us, in front of all of us, and the foam hit my mouth because of the gunshot, And so I do remember that, and other things like going
That's not something that you
going to
can forget.
Germany, being discriminated against. Like the Germans didn't like us. They didn't welcome us, but they had to tolerate us because of their their politicians were trying to look good and take in refugees. But ultimately, just like Mr. Sarkic, we were also kicked out. We were given a letter saying, "Hey, you got to go," and actually it was through a Lutheran church that we were brought here. And that's it. Eventually, how we ended up here, and it was like in end of '99, I believe. Or middle of '99.
So I guess 4 years of you being like.
Yeah, I mean, I was in Germany. I was starting to learn their language. I was going to school there and all of that. But like you said, there was a lot of confusion. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, I come from this place of my first 5 years of my life was nothing but conflict, chaos, anxiety.
Yeah, PTSD and all that.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna.
Yeah, and then you come to a place where it's like, oh, it's peaceful. What is peace? Especially growing up. Like I was. 2 or 3 when the war started, 5 when I left. It's like, what is peace? I didn't know what peace was. And then when I came to Germany, I'm like, oh, these people are living. There's no bombs. There's nothing is going on. Like, what's going on? I was confused. But at the same time, we ended up in Germany in a place where Germany was going through its own thing, right? The Berlin Wall just fell, so they had extremists on both sides as well, and we weren't really welcome. Where we ended up was in a pretty bad place, like descendants of Nazis, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that lived here in this village, so we weren't treated well, for the most part, at least from what I remember. I remember being discriminated in school. The teacher would pull my hair for no reason, tell me to sit in the corner, and all these things. So a lot of confusion.
For sure.
It's crazy. It's crazy to hear all this stuff because you know, you read about it sometimes, but hearing the stories and going into detail and actually going into deep.
I'm so shocked.
Yeah.
Like, I am so shocked. Like, I want to cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, my eyes are getting teared up,
Yeah.
and I'm not a crier.
Resiliency, by the way. A bunch of Bosnians that we know doing great things now, even after all that, and taking advantage of the opportunity that they were given.
You guys are real life heroes.
Yeah. No, seriously.
Like, for real.
Going through that, like, we hear about stuff in Yemen, like, we're like the second, third generation
we're
Yemeni
born here and
people,
stuff.
born here and stuff. So, I mean, we hear about stuff, but, you know, you guys
Yeah, I can
sound
really
like
live
you
through
guys.
it.
Yeah, I feel like I can relate to what's going on in Yemen. Like some of the stories I hear, and I watch it all the time, you know, on my own time, and you know, it's you know, it's no different. Like, right, you have politicians pushing certain things, and who's paying for it? The innocent people, right? The famine, all the stuff that's going on, right? And it's horrible, and you know, it really hits you in the heart. Like, you know, this is what happened to us, and even though we sit here in this peaceful country where most people have never really seen real hard times,
Right.
and you think, how can this happen, right? How can, in the 21st century, how is this even possible, right? But, you know, they say, like, the world is one plate away from a war, from just, you know, from breaking out into a war, so.
People don't understand the importance of a leader, like, of having the right leader.
You know, it's crazy because, like, me being an uneducated person, I would always just have this, like, anticipation in my head that side of the world is the good side. Like, that side, you know, like the pretty area and, like, where people go vacation. Like,
Europe,
the
there.
Europe,
You're
you know,
talking
like,
Europe.
Europe. Like, they're just like, oh, they got it good. But in reality,
Yeah.
like, are we the people that got it good?
There's war
So, like-
everywhere. There's war everywhere.
Like, whoa.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
just messed me up, I'm not gonna lie, guys.
And it's crazy, like, we used to go back to our country and, like, vacation and have that fresh air and see our families,
Yeah.
and now that it's just
It's
not
gone.
not
Yeah,
the
you
same.
can't do that. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Are people being prevented, like, other people staying away from going to Bosnia right now, or?
Right now, you'll have 250,000 Bosnians thinking if they can go back this summer, go home and visit their families. They're thinking that the country's going to spiral into war because it takes so little. I mean,
Yeah.
it takes so little. It takes one crazy person to do something stupid, and that there would be a reaction, whoever that crazy person
Yeah.
is. So it doesn't have to be Serbs. It could be Muslims. It could be Croats.
How
To start a
is the
conflict.
process to bring somebody in? I know in Yemen it's very difficult now to bring someone in. But what is it? How is it like in Bosnia? Is it difficult or is it quick?
To bring him here,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I really don't know. We
taught-
came through
I taught
through a
citizenship for a very long time at adult ed.
You're an expert.
And right now the process is so slow. I mean, try to apply for passport, see what you're gonna get.
Right. I was gonna say, it's,
So before you used to be able to bring mother, father, brother, sister, and that process was anywhere from 3 to 11 years. Now you can just simply forget it. And
But that's not the solution, right? The solution is not to just bring
Bring
everybody
people-
here.
Yeah, no, I
you
know. I'm
what
just
I mean?
saying, like,
And-
it's a quick one, you know?
this is,
Yeah.
Or
and
for
then,
whatever.
but like to take this problem and to make it 10 times worse, we have a global pandemic
Yeah.
that just shut down the entire world. So like now I'm looking at it from the perspective of what COVID-19 did to the free world. You know, like it slowed the normal person down. We can't even get a car, you know? So like think about it from the perspective of war and how slow things are getting churned out from that perspective. This is like literally chaos on top of chaos on top of chaos in a global aspect of the word. So my thing is like, how is the pandemic controlled in the country? Is that something that's also a big issue that's going on with the people, like being you know, like sick and stuff, like vaccines? And I know that's just like, what's that aspect of the government not being able to, like, you know?
so you have ordinary retiree in the Serbian part gets about 150 marks, which is about $100 per month for all of his needs. His medication alone costs $350. So they can't do it. We have a little bit better. Ours is about $200, and again, as I said, medication costs $350. So we cannot afford it. Why? Because we didn't pay for the last war we fought. Make the matters worse, the prices of oil, flour, normal necessities are going up. You have inflation.
Same stuff
Okay,
that's going
so
on
the
here,
same
you know.
thing.
But over there, it's,
Okay.
it's
Over there, we
Just
can
makes
somehow afford it. Over there, it's very tough unless you have a family member. I'm
Who's
sure
here. basically.
family
Yes, yeah.
member. Yeah, we do the same thing.
Basically,
you guys
I was
are
gonna
third,
say the
third
Western
generation.
Union.
Yeah.
So you guys are at Western Union basically every Saturday.
I have an
Just
app.
One thing about like the Bosnian people, we're very self-sustained. You know, a lot of us, farm and do stuff that's self-sustained, even in the
Right.
cities.
Yeah.
So that's how a lot of people still survive to this day. They farm, they raise cattle, they do stuff that's sort of self-sustaining. So that's how they're able to eat. Because you can't just feed everybody, right? But like Mr. Sarkic said, yeah, the prices are crazy, and there's a lot of stuff going on with the pandemic and everything else that's going on. It's not helping. Whatever the situation is right now, if you think it's bad here, over there it's 10 times worse.
Right.
So you brought up something that was a good question. So you said that's not when I said, oh, bring people in, you're like, that's not, a good solution. So what do you think would be a solution? Or what do you think we can do to help? Like if somebody's listening or somebody, like, how do you guys see this planning out? Like what can make things...
I mean, my goal, at least, is to prevent conflict. How do you solve the country's problems? I have no idea, right? We have our own problems, and but my goal, at least, is to prevent bloody conflict, which we all know happens usually every 50 years over there, right? So that's my goal, and the way we can do that is by sharing what happened, what's currently going on, and what the situation might arise to be, and using platforms like this to spread information and educate people. That's the only thing pretty much we can do. As far as solving economic issues,
Right,
I mean,
I
this
know.
is way above. I don't even have a plan where you can start with that. But I think to bring the people together, you have to have a common goal. That's for everybody to unite around, and we're lacking that. Probably because we're lacking a leader who can identify that goal and find a way to articulate that to the people, and give them some hope. Right now, there is no hope over there. People are leaving at a astronomical rate. They're going to Germany and France,
Turkey, and
wherever they can, to make ends meet, and and there's no hope for the people there.
I understood actually what you were saying is like, what's the process for them? Well, we came here because we were allowed through a special resolution by the United States Congress to come to the United States, and there was a usual quota, and our quota was I think about 250,000 people. So we were here brought as refugees, as Syrians were brought, as Afghans were brought here. So that was it was just a condition was to have a relative that can kind of help you
sponsor
assimilate.
you.
Sponsor you into this society.
Right.
So
Very interesting, very interesting. And I just want to quickly touch on, I'm going to zoom in on it. Can you tell us what that, I believe it's a flower?
Yeah. So
I was looking at it, I was wondering.
Yeah,
what
so
that
this here is the
was.
Flower of Celebrants. As some of you may know, 8,372 boys, girls, and older men were murdered in Srebrenica. A girl, 4 years old, Fatima, her name was, all the way to men who were 80 years old, and they were all slaughtered, pretty much, in all sorts of ways, right? And so what this flower represents actually is the green part. It represents the coffin. We cover our coffins in green.
Mm-hmm.
And the white around that you see, this is from an aerial view, by the way. The white that you see around are like the women with their hijabs, and they're holding their hands on the coffin.
Oh, man.
And that represents the brothers and the sons and everybody that they lost. There's a famous video, and the guy is calling his son, Nermine, he's calling him because what the Serbs did is they dressed up like the United Nations, and they made the people believe that they were the UN,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
So,
God.
people were giving up their weapons, and they were gaining the trust of the civilians to gather them so that they can slaughter them, right? So this guy was calling his son, saying, Nermine, come here, we're okay, pretty much calling his son to death, not even knowing.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So Srebrenica is a very dark place. And this flower, the women of Srebrenica, they hand stitch these flowers, and then they sell them to support themselves and to raise awareness. So every time I go, I purchase a bunch and I hand them out to people, even people here. At my job, I handed out to a lot of people, and I wrote like a little note,
yeah.
and surprisingly, a lot of people kept them. They hung them, and
Oh, that's beautiful.
That is.
So over
bittersweet.
8,000 people were slaughtered in 3-day period.
in a 3-day
This was
period.
3-day period.
Yeah.
We're
So they would
talking.
gather them and then.
They would gather them. They would take them into these storages. The main collection point was like a battery factory, and was just closing them, throwing the explosive devices inside, or just simply gunning them down.
Yeah.
They killed 440 kids in those 3 days. Now imagine you're 30 years later, you trying to recuperate from everything that's going on, and then you have somebody singing and glorifying
Correct.
and like praising those people who killed those kids, 440 kids.
Yeah, there's another famous video, actually. You can find this on YouTube. CNN showed a lot of this stuff, actually. But there's another famous video. It was like 6 or 7 teenage boys. And, they were telling them, like, come on, you Turks, yalla, yalla, yelling at them, like, come on. They had their eyes, covered, their hands behind their back, shackled, and they would put them on the ground. They would shoot rifle rounds next to their head, and they would pick them up, take them to another spot, do that again, like just psychological mess.
Yeah.
And then eventually they would slaughter them, but what they would do is they would dig a hole, kill one, make 2, carry the one, then they kill the one, then they make another one, carry the 2, and they were burying each other, literally. The son was digging the grave for the father and carrying his father to the grave, knowing that he would be next.
And because they knew what they were doing was wrong. What they were doing was they were afraid of the satellite photos and discoveries, so they would rebury. They would dig them up
Yep.
and rebury them at another location. So you have one body at 5 different mass grave sites
Yep.
identified through DNA testing.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? You're doing that to conceal crime, a
Right.
war crime, crime against humanity, and ultimately genocide.
If you look at any of these videos, none of these guys are dressed in military uniform. They're all dressed in civilian clothing. They were all civilians for the most part. Some of them, of course, had rifles at one point in attempts to defend themselves because chaos was going on, right? But a lot of the kids who were 10, 11,
They don't know.
yeah, these guys are dressed in, in Adidas pants and, civilian clothing. These guys were not soldiers or paramilitary by any means.
This is a lot of information. I'm still trying to grasp my head around all this information right here. We got people saying that this is a great conversation. So again, I want to say thank you so much, and I appreciate you guys for doing this. I really do for having this conversation, and hopefully we are raising awareness. And even if it's maybe a couple people, you never know the difference that can make as well. So I know you were mentioning it already about what exactly do the Bosnian people want to happen, and you kind of touched on it, but maybe we can clarify it. What do the Bosnian people want to happen? We can start off with you, Mr. Sarkic.
We want peace. There were some political goals, but we just want peace. We want to live in peace. We don't want any more armed conflict. We don't want anybody to cry over their loved ones. We want to visit our family. We want to go over there as a tourist, as visitors to our own country. We don't want to go over there to partake on any side. We just want peace. We want to restore Bosnia to its former glory. We want to host another Winter Olympic Games. We want stuff like that. We want to be known for good things, not genocide and atrocities that people committed in Bosnia.
And do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with him 100%. We want peace, prosperity, economical prosperity. We want our people to be proud of a country, and have a potential for growth and, somewhere where they can go visit their families. We're very good at making a bad situation okay. We're content people, which is, kind of a good and a bad thing. That's why you don't really see a lot of Bosnians scattered around the world before the 90s, because we were content with what we had, and we tend to do that. We tend to be okay with just a little bit. So even though the economy's bad and all this political mess, right? As long as there's no war and, as long as there's peace, we can make things work, at least, amongst ourselves. And we've been very good at that historically, So I think that's all we want. We just want to live in unity. We want to live with everybody because in order to, to prosper, you have to be united. You need Serbs, you need Croats. If it was just up to the Muslims, there's enough of us. We need kind of everybody to play a role. Yeah. But it's kind of hard when the roots of the problem are so deep.
So what do the Serbian people want to happen? Because when we hear everything right here, I don't want to assume that they just want to take over, but is that what it is? Do they just want to take over? What exactly is going on?
I can't really speak for all the Serbs, right? Because not everybody's the same. You have 5 fingers, they're all same DNA, but they're all different, right? So everybody is different in a sense. I can tell you what historically the majority of the Serbs want. And I'll tell you a story. When my grandma was watching a kid, I'm from a Republika Srpska right now, where it's majority of the Serb entity, right? And we have a lot of Serbs who live around us, right? We grew up with them. And, before the war, we were cool with them, right? We're friends with them. Like, so my grandma used to watch this kid. He was 5 years old, a Serbian kid, and he would come and he would say, "Grandma, grandma, I'm a Cheto," which means I'm a Chetnik, which is like the Serb entity, like, you know, they're the extremist group. He would say, 5 years old, he would say, "I'm a Cheto. I'm gonna kill all the Muslims except you, grandma, because you watch me." Now imagine this 5-year-old kid. Where's he getting this from?
100%. I was gonna say,
You know,
he's hearing
he
it
hasn't
in
even
his house.
gone to school yet,
Right.
right? He hasn't left the village. Where is he getting this information from? So they teach their kids, from what again, not everybody, right? But generally speaking, to hate from a very young age. You know what I mean? So in order for, you know, this current leader to be enticing this, he needs support. He can't just say, oh, he can speak whatever he wants, but if the people don't want to do anything, he has no merit, right? He has no push behind it. The reason he has a voice is because there are people who support him, and there are people who are willing to kill again and get rid of everybody for this greater Serbia or this, you know, greater nation. Again, that's not everybody, because preparing for this, I was actually shocked to read, you know, I was reading a few interviews and a few articles, and it was, you know, these were Serb, you know, younger generation Serbs who were actually speaking, and one of the gentlemen, actually they all had a similar story, but one of the gentlemen was speaking. He was saying that, you know, he loves Bosnia. He wants to live in harmony with the Muslims and Croats, and he doesn't want to be identified as a Serb. He wants to be identified as a Bosnian first, you know. And I was actually shocked to hear this, you know, because, you know, it's like, you know, that's really not what we've been, you know, taught, and that's not our experience with them, right? So maybe there are some people who do want to live in harmony.
So do you feel like the younger generation is more open-minded, is more...
It depends. I think it would depend on their education.
Yes.
You know, and I don't think that there's enough who are educated, because even before the war, there was people who defended the Muslims. But you know what happened to them? They were killed before the Muslims. You know, there was a very famous general in our village, and he would speak, you know, for the Muslims, right? They killed him first. They shot him before they killed any of us. They shot him right in front of the parliament, right outside, right? So, you know, and then they set up his son, and they shot up his son's car, and they blamed it on the Muslims, said that we did this, you know? So it was like, you know, false flags, right? So, you know, it's kind of hard to say what everybody wants, but historically, what they want is a greater Serbia. They want to be in power at any cost, even if it means slaughtering women, children. You know, this was the biggest mass rape in the history of modern warfare. More women were raped during the Bosnian War than any other, you know, modern wartime. So, you know, it's not just about, you know, taking power and control. It's also about wiping out the identity of the people who live there. You know, by, you know, rape and getting rid of their books and the fact that they ever existed. So, you know, I think that still lies among a lot of them, because they haven't been educated. Nothing really changed to change their mind, you know. So it'll be like ignorant to believe that all of a sudden, you know, majority of them don't want that anymore. You know, I think they do.
And in a poor society such as Bosnia, especially that part of Bosnia, we have extreme poverty. We are like, I think, ranked fifth poorest country in Europe. It's easy to stoke these nationalist tendencies and blame somebody else different, somebody other, for your ills, for your poor lifestyle or lower socioeconomic status.
Right.
So it's easy to stoke up this. And this is what Serbian president, another proxy in this, he was actually one of the people that attacked Bosnia and was partaking in the war. Now he's in power in Serbia, and he's talking peace, he's talking great game, but silently he's actually supporting this and kind of liking this, because ultimately, to bring it to that Kosovo story in the United States, they're going to lose that part that traditionally was theirs. They actually lost it already in 2008 when Kosovo declared independence. They're hoping to gain something, so they're also hoping that somehow they can trade with Bosnia and they can trade with the territory and push the borders and so on. So he gained something after he lost the territory.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
How many proxies would you guys say are playing a part in this scheme right now? Like how many proxies, or how many like group of individuals? So we know that there's the three leaders, and then we have Russia playing a role.
Russia.
And then we have
The United States?
the U.S.
Can't
playing a
forget
role.
about the U.S.
Oh, come on. And then so it's the but okay, so So Russia, I want to say, and the U.S. are playing the biggest outside
They're
influence.
the biggest
Yeah,
outside.
biggest outside influence, correct? Yeah.
And they're using little people as
around
pawns,
them to like basically do their dirty work.
basically, yeah.
And what their gain is out of this, I have no idea.
Well, United
Okay.
States, what United States is going to gain out of this, and ultimately it will happen, regardless. We are going to enter NATO, and that's our goal, because I think NATO, North American Treaty Organization, military, greatest military alliance in
You got a history
I
teacher
know.
here.
NATO is something I feel like the
I
general.
don't know what
NATO is something that people should know.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
military alliance will enter, and that'll provide stability. And all
Okay.
these then greater power, because NATO's countries are stable, borders are stable, nobody's going to come in and take nothing from you, because ultimately attack on one is an attack on all. That's what Russia's trying to prevent. That's what they're trying to prevent in Ukraine, because United States would like Ukraine to become part of NATO.
I want to
and
know who's
provide
helping
us-
Bosnia right now.
I'm sorry?
Who's helping Bosnia right now?
We are.
We are, yeah.
So
We are the
cool.
greatest
Thank you.
voice right now. You know when they're gonna start coming in, when the blood's already shed. That's when they're gonna come in.
I know.
Because they're gonna set the stage. That these killings will come. They're gonna create this problem. Then they're gonna have a solution for you, right? And then they're gonna come in and they're gonna look like the heroes, just like they try to take the credit for the war that they stopped in the 90s, right? America loves to take credit. Oh, we bombed Belgrade. We stopped the war. Really? Because I know my uncles went with pitchforks and hunting rifles to stop
Right.
these guys, right? So
It's
I don't know how much
American
you really played a
Right.
part in this besides your political role.
Can I be honest with you?
Yes, sir.
I thought America stopped the war.
Of
I'm gonna
course
be
you did.
completely honest with
Like
you.
being
guys.
an outsider.
Yeah, being an outsider. Because
Well, the victors of war, right?
They did.
History,
They did.
Yeah.
And they now
They set the stage for the next one.
They set the stage for the next one. That's Kosovo. Now you have a military base over there. You have a military base in Albania. So just in case Germany, Ramstein Air Force Base, just in case Germany says, okay, we don't want United States anymore, we still have presence in Europe. United States across the world has approximately 850 military bases, and Bosnia and Kosovo and ultimately Serbia, I think, will eventually have a United States military presence.
Yeah.
So I know in the last ring of what was going on in the Middle East, it was so hard, and the only thing that actually made it prevalent to the people, to the normal people, in a retrospect, was the influence of social media and getting word out and stuff like that. So, being the people that we are, what are some of the things that we can do to start pushing this message out? Like, what are there specific numbers? Are there senators? Are there
If I may, we actually have Amra Reyes Shabic orchestrated this mailing campaign. So for your viewers and your listeners, if you text GO MIR, GO MIR, to 50409,
yes.
50409?
yes, and text GO space MIR.
MIR.
What that will automatically do once you hit send,
Yep.
it will mail a letter
Screenshot that real quick.
demanding a peaceful resolution of what's going on in Bosnia right now from the United States. So automatically letters will be sent to Debbie Stabenow, Gary Peters, and any representative in your district. Also, I actually got a response from President Biden,
Oh.
and so that he acknowledged that he received a letter and that he takes our concerns seriously. So this is a wonderful way. So that one more time for your viewers and listeners, it's GOMIR, and that's texted to 50409.
Means go peace.
So I just did it right now, guys. It was literally took me 2 seconds while they were talking. I did it, and I just got a text message saying, "Do you want to send regarding to the ongoing situation in Bosnia to President Biden and your members of Congress?" So it's as simple as just literally just putting it in a text message. So I mean, it was really, really simple. Can we say the number one more time? It's 50409. And we're texting the word GO MIR. So that's GO space MIR. And
Yeah, and I think it's
simple
important
text.
that we take action now because
Yeah, absolutely.
once the shots are fired, it's going to be too late.
What is that? Yeah.
The rivers will be bloody again.
And I am typing it in the comment section right now as well. So I just want to let people know that it will be in the comment section in 2 seconds, and I just posted it right now as well. And so how and when do you think this conflict will end? And I know I'm scared to hear the answer because when you hear
I
that...
think I would like him, Mr. Sarkic, to start, please.
Yeah,
I think he's more optimistic than I am.
Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah,
Because-
optimism, yes. I think that Serbian appetite somehow needs to be satisfied. What I think would the ultimate resolution would be, we all enter NATO and we all enter EU, European Union, as a countries. Borders disappeared, economies relaxed, people can go and live wherever they want to. That's how you can stop this. Now, Europe is inept. I mean, they're a bureaucratic mess, probably worse than United States Congress. You have all these nations pulling aside. You have migrant crisis, which are causing this anti-Muslim sentiment, Islamophobia, to be rampant in Europe. And Serbian side is using that to, I don't know, paint us in a bad image. So we are the ones that are causing problems. We are the ones that are trying to pick a fight. We're taking their rights. We need to be going somewhere. Where that somewhere is, I don't know, because we are Bosnians. That we don't have a backup country. Like
Right.
Bosnian Croats can go to Croatia.
Croatia.
Bosnian Serbs can go.
Can go to
Where
Serbia.
where do we go?
Right.
And we're not going
Right,
anywhere.
right.
So we want peace. How do I see this? I don't know. I mean, more investments in Serbia, more investments in Bosnia. Maybe people will focus more on future and prosperity versus nationalism and murder and killing and ethnic cleansing. Serbia needs to be somehow made whole in all of this, and they will possibly stop. I don't know what that whole is. I have my own
To the
ideas.
expense of who?
That's a good question. Yeah.
To the expense of who, though?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So
They need to somehow figure out that they're the ones who caused the World War One. You know, they're the ones who were actively participating in the World War II. They were actually participating in the Holocaust. That's not the way to go. They need to focus towards the future. It is going to be hard. People need to be educated, even by the show like this. That's not the way to go. That they need to focus on dropping the guns and picking up, I don't know, tools to work. Because ultimately, when they're prosperous, hopefully they'll have a lot more to lose, than engage in, I don't know, grand schemes of creating greater anything. So.
Some things I agree, some things I have to disagree because, they do have to be made whole, but the whole is to get rid of the Muslim people as a whole, right? For us to not exist there anymore. The root is the hate. It's not an economic problem, because we had a time when the country was prospering during the time of Tito and Yugoslavia, and the nationals were still going on. The nationalism was still going on. It was suppressed because of the iron fist that Tito ruled with, but it was still there, right? As soon as he died, this thing came right back up. So what was their excuse then, right? You had this economic, prosperation. So I don't necessarily think that, they do want to be made whole, but that whole means that at the expense of the Muslim people, and we're not willing to do that.
Because all these territories that they're asking for a portion of Montenegro, they're asking for active participation in Montenegrin government. They want portions of Kosovo. That's where their minority lives. So they want somehow, if we can somehow persuade them that nobody's trying to affect their culture, that they're able to move, visit their holy sites in Kosovo, that nobody's going to prevent them from doing that. But we are separate countries. We are separate countries.
And right now, nobody's preventing them from doing anything. They can ring their church bells and do whatever they want to do, and still not enough. Right? It's still not enough. Like the problem is the Muslims live here, and we're like a hurdle for them. We're in their way, and until that hurdle is gone, they won't be satisfied. And then even when if it ever, which I know it will never go away, because there's a famous song that says, when there's no Bosnia, there won't be no more Bosnians. So I believe that our people are literally willing to go extinct before we give it up. you know, and for them, they're willing to kill until we go extinct. So I don't think that, you know, that there's a solution. There may be a suppression with the NATO and the political ways. All that's going to do is suppress it and kick the can down the road. You know, eventually it's going to meet back where it did historically.
Yeah,
That's
I got
just
a
my
question.
opinion.
I got a question for y'all off camera though, because this just blew my mind, and we'll take this conversation to another hour. But as far as the people and what the people can do, as far as like giving, because at this point, like I don't like, I get it, I just did that text message, but like
It's not enough.
it's not enough for me. Like what more, like, you know what I mean? Is anybody orchestrating like donations or funding to like the families that need the help, or
Well, there's always funding and fundraisers going on. I don't really know if money will solve the problem
Problem right
necessarily,
now?
right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know.
Because they're not in it right now.
Yeah,
It's just heated
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, exactly. The anxiety is being created because of what
Okay.
happened historically, right?
Okay,
We know
okay.
what's going to happen when the conflict breaks out, you know? So I don't think it's necessarily a money thing. And
Got
I
it.
really don't even, you know, giving people like Mr. Sarkic said something to focus on, you know, could potentially, you know, steer them in another way. But man, I think it takes like a whole, you know, new form of social engineering to change these people's minds of
Absolutely.
what happened that will never happen again. You know, because you don't see the Indians coming over here and killing white people because, hey, you
Took the line.
raped me and took my land, right? How did they get out of that mentality? I'm sure they had that type of animosity at some point. How did they get out of that mentality? See, over there we have no plan for that. The animosity, the roots are so deep that they're always going to be there unless something drastically changes, and I really don't know what that change is. You know, I know education is one way, but how do you educate when everybody's pulling their own way?
Right.
You know?
Right.
You need a unity. And
Right.
it is so difficult because these roots they go
Embedded,
back. They
yeah.
go back.
You guys have brought up some great points, great analogies, great comparisons, and I hope for the people that are watching are learning something at least. And if there's something that you are wondering, how can you support? If I am getting anything out of this, it's just raising awareness
Yeah.
and trying our best to prevent, you know, doing what we can to prevent it from even getting to that
Yeah.
point. Because, you know, right now it seems like that, like you guys said, people have anxiety because they're getting
They're getting the same thoughts
yeah.
that used to the flashbacks are coming back from the 90s because
Yeah.
they're doing the exact same thing. I was just watching a video. The Serb leader, the president who's in charge now, was sitting in the parliament, you know, drinking moonshine, and they were playing the Serb nationalist songs right inside the parliament, and he had a media come in there and record all this. You know, so why did he have the media come? You can do that and don't have the media record, but the reason the media is there is to, you know, entice the people and exactly provoke and get something going, right? So as long as you have that and you have people supporting that, I really don't see how you can get out of it. You have to change the mindset of the people, and that is way easier said than done.
And he's master of doing that. The whole harmonica
Yeah.
thing in the presidency was just look at this shiny object and ignore what I'm doing
Right.
to your country, how I'm stealing the money,
Yeah.
how I'm treating COVID patients with oxygen that is meant for welding,
Yeah.
metal.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. And also, to make matters worse, we have elections coming up. So
Yep.
a lot of this
That's
is
what when I was asking you
Yeah, yeah, a lot of
earlier,
this-
what provoked it now? It's the
trying
election.
to force us to all, and here's the thing: Bosnians, Muslims, Bosnian Croats are kind of participating in this because they're using this to mobilize their people behind them.
Yeah, of course. It's a
And
power.
so it's politics,
Yeah.
but let's hope that it's not going to get there, because what we're discovering right now, and we talk to family over there all the time, Friday prayers, they're telling them, you know what, let's hope for the best, but make sure you take out your AK-47s, make sure they work properly.
And prepare for the worst. And honestly, you know, that is a message that you have to send, right? Hope and pray for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Worst, right.
You don't keep a fire extinguisher in your house hoping your house burns down. You keep it there hoping you never have to use it, but you're prepared in case you have to use it. And in the 90s, we suffered because we weren't prepared. We were ignorant. We were ignorant to the situation that, nothing's going to happen. The international community will step in. Our presidents are saying don't go to war. But another famous quote from a Croat leader. His name was Stipe. I forgot his name, but he said, "Oh, brother Muslims, right? Muslim brothers." He was a Croat. He's saying, "Sell your cow and buy a rifle, because if you don't have a rifle, you won't have your head or a cow."
Steep message.
Yep, because he said, if the war crosses into Bosnia, the rivers will be bloody. And that is exactly what happened. People did not listen to him. Some people did. Of course, that's why we're still in existence, because you had some resistance that was able to form from this, right? But majority of the people were ignorant to this. So I guess my message would probably be the same. Hope, pray for the best, do whatever you can to avoid conflict and to educate and, go in the right direction. But you have to prepare for the worst, because if you don't, it could be your very existence.
Very deep, very deep. And I'm going to let these guys give us their final words. I do have to mention the second sponsor of today, which is BC Adhesives. So first and foremost, shout out to BC Adhesives. They are located in Franklin, Wisconsin. You can go to BC Adhesives for all your industrial adhesives needs. They do food packaging, book binding, product assembly, and many other industrial services. If you are in need of adhesives for your business or having trouble with your current adhesives applications, you can contact them by phone, which their number is 1-888-679-9825, or go to their website, www.bcadhesives.com. Thank you to Matt, Terry, Cassidy, Ed, and Jake, everybody over there at BC Adhesives. So, with everything said, first of all, I'm going to keep saying this. Thank you guys so much for coming here. I really do appreciate it. Busy men coming over here on a Tuesday, on a weekday. This guy got to wake up 4 in the morning.
4 in the morning.
So coming here and, again, thank you so much for this and educating myself, I'm sure the table, and the people that are watching, hopefully eventually watching later on as well. Final word, how do you... Anything you want to wrap this up with?
I don't want to talk about war anymore. That's the topic has been serious enough.
Yeah.
Bosnia is a beautiful country. It is a gorgeous country. If you have a bucket list, please add Bosnia to that list. Yeah. It's absolute pristine lakes, clean rivers, mountains. It's actually the Switzerland for the fraction of the cost.
And great honey. If you love honey,
I'll say Yemen has good honey too.
A lot of the people from the Gulf countries are coming there and purchasing honey, and they're actually partnering with the honey farmers over there, and starting businesses. So
Nice.
I'll actually learn that from my Yemeni friend. He might be watching. Shout out to Bashir.
What's his last name?
Nasir.
Oh, okay.
I'll say that, right?
Yeah, I was going to say too. But continue on what you're saying. Bosnia, beautiful country.
Bosnia is a beautiful country for I think around $1,500 instead of going to Cancun. Go to Bosnia.
You'll have a great time.
You'll have a great time. People, all of them, Bosnians, Croats, Serbs, they're all very hospitable when they're not fighting each other.
Yeah. Yes.
What's your final word as well?
I love him. I love what he said, but I just want to thank you for having this platform, for having us on this platform, and allowing us to share our experiences and spread awareness, because I think that's the first step, and probably the greatest chance of having something happen without conflict, maybe spreading awareness. And I thank you for this platform.
No problem. Thank you guys again for coming on. Sister and Shea, do you want to say any final things you want to say?
I just want to say no one wants to lose their home country, so we have to do our part.
Exactly.
And we grew up, like I said, with them, family. So for those of you, put everything to the side and understand that whenever you can help. That's literally what I tell people from now on. Anytime you have a chance to help somebody, help somebody.
It's our duty.
It's not a preference. What they're asking for isn't a preference. It's not like we're saying, hey, can we get vaccinated? This is human basic decency. This is their human rights they're asking for. So, all jokes aside, all bias aside and stuff, you really, really, really have to ask yourself, if somebody's human decency, if somebody's human right doesn't matter to you, then that's some mirror work, right? But absolutely, I have no affiliate to the Bosnian community, and I'm still genuinely concerned because this is a human right problem. This is not just something that's you have to feel some type of way in order for you to care. No, this is basic human decency. So it's very, very important to educate yourself, right? The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to educate myself more on the topic and do what I feel that I can do to push this to push this message. So I think it's very, very important for the few people that, keep that guilt or have that guilt embedded in their hearts, use that, right? Use that to your advantage and use it to push the message. So I think I'm truly grateful for this conversation, and thank you guys for making it so light for me to ask all of my silly questions. But honestly, it's been so informative. So I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
It really was. Again, the show is available on Oz Media 313's YouTube page. You can later listen to this show on Apple and Spotify podcasts under Oz Media. Again, thank you guys for being here today. We really do appreciate it. And we hope that whoever it is, we hope that you learned something, and hopefully you can raise awareness by either sharing this or finding a video that is out there, an article that's out there that's raising awareness and talking about it. And then texting go
50409.
Yes, to
go GOMIR.
Yes. So text 50409 to go MIR. To learn more about it and to sign a petition.
Do you have to close the show, or can I just share some interesting anecdote to
For sure.
personalize Bosnia to American?
Yes.
Okay. So you work for Chrysler, right?
Yeah.
Now Ford Mustang, who doesn't love Mustang, right? Well, the chief engineer was a Bosnian refugee who came from Germany. His name is Kemal Churek.
Yep.
And he's responsible for that Mustang looking awesome as it does right now. And if you think Camaro is safe, we got family working on that. I got family working at GM. A lot of our friends are working over there. So don't mess with the American muscle.
Yep.
There you go. And we have a Spanish and history teacher as well. And we have a supply chain guy at Chrysler as well. Like I said, man, resilience. I know plenty about it.
Last question. Do you guys feel like because you were able to escape the war at that time that you have like a greater purpose?
Absolutely.
Definitely. Why did we make it and other people didn't? There was kids younger than me that were murdered. Why did I get out?
Very powerful question, yeah. Very powerful. Absolutely. Daily.
There you go. Thank you all for watching. Again, we appreciate it. And we will see you all next week. And we hope you guys all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you,
and a great
guys.
rest of your week.